Hello, welcome to my YouTube channel. Today we are going to see about Azure Logic Apps, especially how to manage JSON objects using the Azure Logic Apps. I've already published a video regarding a similar topic, but that was more on the Power Automate. Now let's see how we manage the JSON object, especially the array, and insert few JSON objects inside another JSON using the Azure Logic Apps. So in this session I would take the sample JSON object, which is more like a car. It's a car object which has two car models, Nissan and Ford, and it has several models within. It's an array of models which we have, and the Ford have multiple array as well. So with this JSON, what I'm going to do is that this would be the input JSON, and we're going to change this JSON to look like this using the Azure Logic Apps. So basically, for a Nissan car with the model Sentra, I'm going to add a booking details. So let's start. First we need to create a new Azure Logic Apps. This is just a basic procedure we use to create a Logic Apps. Log into Azure, open a Logic Apps. Here it is. I'm going to create a new Logic App. Just create one. I already have a resource group specific to Logic Apps. It's a good idea to have a specific resource group so that later if you want to delete it, you can just delete it. So for this I'm going to say JSON, manage JSON maybe, and let me select the region, East Asia region. That's where I belong to. That's it, Windows standard, and it's a consumption based. So for a standard, you should be very careful when you create an Logic Apps, because sometimes if it is a standard model, it has its own consumption and the charge is going to be high. So I'm just using the consumption model, which is like db1 create. It takes a while, and then I just create a new Logic Apps. If you are used to the Power Automate, Logic Apps more or less similar to the Power Automate, but it has its own features. Okay, so now it has been created, a new Logic App has been created. So I'm just going to, you can see that there is an overview as well as the other one which you should be most often using it is the run history. For now there is no run history because we have not executed or created or added any actions to it. Let's start editing it. Okay, so basically we need to add the trigger. In this scenario, for this sample, I'm going to take a HTTP trigger, meaning that whenever there is a request comes in with the HTTP, this Logic App is going to be triggered. So I select the HTTP triggered, and I have the sample JSON. So this is a usual procedure. Let me go to my sample JSON, which is this. I'm going to use it here as a payload. Maybe I just use it as a payload. Cars. Let me get the full JSON, and it is going to use this as a, so the schema is created automatically based on the payload. There is no other parameter which I'm going to use. The method, I'm going to select the method to be post method. So basically when you call a HTTP method, especially the post method, in the body you would receive this JSON, and it is strictly schema based. You should strictly pass the JSON in this format. I saved it. Yeah, Let's move. Okay, so this is the first step. When there's a JSON received, it will automatically parse the JSON, and I want to manipulate the JSON based on it. If you see here, basically in this JSON format, I want to inject the booking detail, which is this. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to save this in a separate variable so that I can inject it into the JSON, main JSON. So let's start declaring the variable. Okay, I'm going to see more, initialize the variable. Let me put the variable as booking, and this is of type object, and I just copy this. Okay, so I just initialize the variable. It's a good practice to name each action or the activity so that it's easy to see. So usually when there is an initialization, when there is initialization happening, I used to declare it as variable so that it is clear to me that it is a declaration, variable declaration. So now the variable is been assigned. Now we'll enter into the logic. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to declare an array, the same variable, initialize the variable. Oops, sorry, let me change it to initialize variable. Let me put it see more, initialize variable, which is more of cars JSON. Cars JSON, and of type array. So what I'm going to do is that I'm declaring an empty array. So this array will hold all the details of the model plus the booking. So later you would see the logic, and you would understand why this array has been initialized. And I'm going to count an array so that we know which model to use it. So probably I would use initialize variable. Again, I would set it as array index, and this is the array index. This is just to increment an index so that I know how many of the index an array has. Okay, integer, I initialize it to 0, so that's how the variable starts in. So now what I want to do is that if you take this JSON format, exactly at this model Sentra, I want to add the booking detail. So if you take this JSON, Nissan has several models, which is an array. Exactly onto this first model, I want to inject the booking details. So there are several ways to do it. I'm going to show you this step 1 or first way how to do it with irrespective of your index. Then second way, I'm going to describe how you would do with the index. So let me add for each, maybe 1 minute. So we'll have to add control. Inside the control you would see for each. Yeah, so again for each I usually use a meaningful name so that I can easily identify why that for each is running for. So in this case I'm going to run through all the models within the Nissan. So what I do is each Nissan model, and if you go to this, probably you would see Nissan. Yeah, that's it. So for each of Nissan it is going to run. Okay, so next add an action, I'm going to add a condition. So here what we're going to do is that I want to inject only when the model Sentra comes in. So I just go to condition. I'm going to choose the model, especially the model. I think this is the model. Yeah. So if you see here, items of each Nissan and this model, if this model is equal to Sentra, that this is becoming true. So this is how it goes in. I'm just going to check the model Sentra, because only in Sentra we are going to add the booking. Once the condition is true, we're going to add the booking. So for adding a booking, basically you can have a formula or the properties. So for that we need a data manipulation object. Let me say data operations. So we should add a compose object, because I'm going to manipulate the data on my own using the JSON path or functions, which is the built-in functions. So I would use the compose. Again, instead of compose, just give a meaningful name. I'm going to add the booking, so I just say add booking, just the name, nicer name. Then in this scenario it is an expression. I'm not going to pull anything existing, so in this case it is an expression. So what expression I'm going to do, let me add it here so that it is clear. Okay, so this is the expression I'm going to add. So basically there is a function called add property. This property takes an object. So within the Nissan object, I'm going to add a booking object. So this booking is the name of the property, meaning that this is the name of the property which he is going to add. This is the booking name of the property, and this is the detail which you're going to insert into it. So what you're going to do is that you add a property, this is the object, and this is the booking name, this is the property name, and the variable of the booking. Variable of the booking meaning that whatever has been saved in that variable, it will be inserted into that property. Let's see. So I'm just going to add here input function, just paste it here for booking. Okay, each Nissan should be okay. Add. Okay, invalid property y. Okay, so if you see here, I've added this detail, so you should be adding the detail here. So there is one issue with this. Whenever you try to manipulate the JSON and try to add a property, it adds it to the exact node, but your original, it will not manipulate the original JSON. So you will have to save it into your original JSON at some point. So it is just manipulating the JSON, it is adding a property, but it returns only the added property within it. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to create my own array so that I can store all these changes. So I'm going to use a method called append array, variable append array, append to the variable array. So here what I'm going to do is that in the cars JSON, remember we declared an empty array. Inside that array I'm going to save this previous parameter, which is output of add booking. So output of add booking. So the previous value is stored into this array. So whenever there is a Sentra object being condition is true, then it adds the booking detail. So when it is not true, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to add the same append array. I'm going to add the same append to array variable, and here what I'm going to do is that I'm just going to add whichever which comes inside here. So basically what it happens is that I'm just going to add the current item. That's it. So the current item is nothing but, so for each we are doing for each for Nissan, so the current item is the full JSON, the model and the doors. So current item is here. If it is Sentra, I am going to add a booking and save it into an array, and if it is not, I am just getting this exact value and just putting it into an array. That's it. That's how the logic is. So once these are saved into an array, where this is the array where it has saved cars JSON, it has saved into that array in both the conditions. So now I need to basically add those detail here. Let me put booking. Okay, yeah, this is on each Nissan. Yeah, this is all correct. And after the condition, so what I need to do is that whatever the array which I have, I should save it to the original JSON. Data operation always use the compose. So now what I'm going to do is that this is for update JSON. Okay, so basically here what I'm going to do is that whatever the array which comes in, I need to add it to the original JSON so that we get the complete JSON out of it. So remember, I told you that whenever you start manipulating the JSON here, it doesn't save it to the original object. It always creates a copy of it, and it will just return whatever it has been modified. So it is your later part to save into the original JSON. So here again I'm going to use one more method, which is the set property. So what I'm doing is that I'm going to use the set property, getting the original object of the cars and finding the method Nissan, and this property I'm going to set whatever the variable which is saved, or all the array object which has been saved here. So basically what it does is it just trying to overwrite the Nissan object, Nissan property within this object. That's it. Okay, it has been saved. And whenever you have a HTTP request enabled object, you should have a response. So let me find out response. Request response. What is the response? Okay, response. So I'm just going to return 200 and the body, which is output of update JSON. That's all. So what I'm going to do is that I'm just saving the return object and then returning it as a response. So basically what happens is that, let me save this. What happens is that whenever I get a request, I save it into an array. The index for now I declared it, I'm not using it for now. And for each Nissan model, if it is only Sentra, just add a booking, or else just add whatever the return value comes in. Then you just return whatever the value. So this should contain the original modified JSON, hopefully. Okay, so to test it, either you can execute it here, or if you go here, once you save, this HTTP request will give you the URL. You copy the URL. Now you go to the Postman. This is the Postman. Let me create one add request. This is the Postman request. For us, it is a post request. Paste the URL. Go to the body, change it to raw, and then JSON. And this expects a strict schema, so probably you need these. So copy this, put it into here. So now we are ready to execute. Let me invoke it. So when you click on this, hopefully it should return the booking. See? Okay. So Azure Logic Apps has executed correctly, and it had returned the booking with Nissan. We have added the booking. So I just show here the full JSON. That's how it comes in. Let's see the run history. Let me duplicate this tab. To see the run history, you can see it here. I always go to the run history, and then there is a succeeded run history. Now you can see how this has been executed. So if we dissect it, this HTTP request comes based on the request. You can see here, this is the body which has been executed. This is just the declaration of a variable. This is also a variable. So here, if you see here, it is just declaration of a variable. And for each Nissan, so there are 3 models in the Nissan, so it is going to run for each 3 times. And for the first time when it executes, it is true. Why? Because it's a model Sentra. And for this Sentra, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to add this booking into this. If you see here, this is the raw output which you get when you add the booking. So it doesn't save it to the original JSON, so it is going to return you whatever the object it has modified. That's it. So it will just give you only the see here, it is not going to modify the original JSON. It just gives you whatever the model it has been modified. That's it. So once it has modified, I'm just saving that into an array. This is an array. The same array being appended here for other conditions, and for the next 2 conditions it is going to be fail. It goes into the false condition. See here, it goes to the false condition. It keep appending the other model. Basically I'm forming my own JSON. Then finally I'm appending the whole JSON. That's it. And I'm returning it. That's how it is. So these JSON, you can manipulate it using formula as well. Add property, remove property, set property. Those are the 3 key functions which you use to manipulate the JSON. And also if you want to directly manipulate the JSON using some other method, you can still do it. Like for example, in the response object, you don't want the output, or if you go to the output, say for example output right now, if you see the formula of the outputs of update JSON, you can query to a single as well. Like for example, if I just write in function, close it. So outputs of, so I can just say outputs of update JSON. What is the previous function? Update JSON. And then I can just mention I want only the Nissan object. Add. So basically what you're doing is that you're iterating and then specifying that give me only the Nissan object. I don't want the full JSON. I just want Nissan property. That's it. So if you save and then execute again, hopefully this will work. I'm executing it again. So the whole Azure Logic app goes through, and then see here, it returns only the Nissan object, Nissan property. So it doesn't return Ford, it returns only the Nissan. So you can manipulate based on your formula. This function comes in handy. It's more like an XPath, navigate through the XML. And I can show you few more steps. Like for example, I can even iterate one level down. Like for example, give me Nissan from the first model. Like it's an array, so I can just point an array to the index. So what this will return is that it gives you only the model Sentra. It doesn't give you all the model. It just gives you only the model Sentra. I just update it, save it, and I execute this Azure Logic Apps again. See, perfect. So it gives me only the Sentra model. So it's an array of 0. So with this you can manipulate with your JSON with any format you want. And in my example, in this whole Azure Logic Apps, what I've been doing is that I'm running a for each loop to identify the Sentra, and then I'm just updating the Sentra object. So if you are advanced Azure Logic Apps manipulating the JSON, this whole loop you can just ignore. How? You can just say that with this add booking, with this add property, you can always say that directly add booking to the object within the JSON Nissan object. So how do you do that? Like for example, I can directly add see more, compose. Okay, so what I can do is that I can add a formula. Let me copy that formula so that I don't need to type it again. Okay, I'm using the same formula. Okay, so what I can do is that I can always say that trigger body of what is the trigger body question. I can iterate to Nissan object, Nissan property, sorry, and I can say 0. So what it can do is that add property without, if you are very specific about an array, you know that this has to be inserted to the first object is always Sentra in an array, and you know that it is an array index 0. You can just use one function to directly inject into that. So for example, if I just use this, it is going to directly add it into the Sentra URL. So this is just for the sample, it will not return. So if I execute this, the return will be the same, but let's see how. Wow, something error. Let's see what is the error. So you just go to the run history, take the error. You can see the error here. Why? It's unable to process template compose 2 of 0. So what it does is, okay, so I'll have to iterate through cars. So I missed the cars. So Nissan variable of booking cannot be evaluated because the property 0 cannot be selected. Okay, I missed the car. So what I do, property of 0 cannot be evaluated. Let me do here, add property Nissan. I will have to trigger body. Let me go to the trigger body of what? Trigger body of cars and Nissan. So I have to use this. Okay, let me go there. Trigger body of okay. So what I'm going to do is that I'm getting the cars object and then the Nissan object, and the first inside the first array I'm going to insert in. Let's see whether it works. Save it and then send them. Hopefully it works. Yeah, this time it works. The return is the same. I'm not modifying the return, but if you see the execute history, okay, so if you take this compose, so basically what it does is it will directly inject it into your property. So if you see the raw input, see here, it had injected directly into the Sentra object as a booking, and you can manipulate similarly the array by the index, and that is also one of the way. So if you are very familiar with the JSON, how to manipulate the object, it's basically by array index and set and get property, set, remove, add property. So those are the functions which are really useful to manipulate the JSON object within the Azure Logic Apps, and which will be very helpful. So hope you had some knowledge about the JSON with this. I think it would be helpful for you. Thank you.